want to ask you for a few minutes' patience while I say something that is on my heart. I want to thank those home folks of my county who gave an anxious country boy his first opportunity to serve in state politics. I shall always owe a lot to those who gave me that first opportunity to serve. I will never forget the warm support and close loyalty of the folks at Sutton's Store and Hegler's Mill, Eufaula, Beat 6 and Beat 14, Richards Crossroads and Gammox Beat, at Baker Hill and Beat 8, Coma, Spring Hill, Adams Chapel and Mount Andrew, White Oak, Baxter Station, Clayton, Louisville and Cunningham Place, Horns Crossroads, Texasville, and Blue Springs, where the vote was 304 Wallace and 1 for the opposition. And the dear little lady whom I heard had made that one vote against me by mistake because she couldn't see too well and she had pulled the wrong lever. Bless her heart. At Clio, my birthplace and where I finished high school, and Elamville, I shall never forget them, and may God bless those good people forever. And I shall forever remember that election day morning as I waited, and suddenly at 10 o'clock that morning the first return of a box was flashed over this state. It carried the message, Wallace 15, opposition 0. And it came from Hamrick Beat at Putman's Mountain, where live the great hill people of our state. May God bless the mountain man. His loyalty is unshakable. He'll do to walk down the road with. I hope you forgive me these few moments of remembering, but I wanted them and you to know that I shall never forget. I wish I could shake hands and thank all of you in this state who voted for me, and even those of you who did not, for I know you voted your honest convictions. And now we must stand together and move this great state of Alabama forward. I would be remiss this day if I did not thank my wonderful wife and fine family for their patience, support, and loyalty. And there is no man living who does not owe more to his mother than he can ever repay. And I want my mother to know that I realize my debt to her. This is the day of my inauguration as governor of the state of Alabama. And this day I feel a deep obligation to renew my pledges, my covenants with you, the people of this great state. General Robert E. Lee said that duty is the most sublime word in the English language, and I have come increasingly to realize what he meant. I shall do my duty to you, God helping, to every man, to every woman, yes, to every child in this state. I shall fulfill my duty toward honesty and economy in our state government, so that no man shall have a part of his livelihood cheated, and no child shall have a bit of his future stolen away. I have said to you that I would eliminate the liquor agents in this state, and that the money saved would be returned to our citizens. I am happy to report to you that I am now filling orders for several hundred one-way tickets, and stamped on them are these words, for liquor agents, destination out of Alabama. I'm happy to report to you that the big freewheeling cocktail party boys have gotten the word that their free whiskey and boat rides over, that the farmer in the field, the worker in the factory, the businessman in his office, the housewife in her home, have decided that the money can be better spent to help our children's education and our older citizens. And they have put a man in office to see that this should be done. And I can assure you that it will be done. And as I promised you in the campaign, no more liquor drinking in your governor's mansion. I shall fulfill my duty in working hard to bring industry into our state, not only by maintaining an honest, sober, and free enterprise climate of government in which industry can have confidence, but in going out and getting it, so that our people can have industrial jobs in Alabama and provide a better life for their children. I shall not forget my duty to our senior citizens, so that their lives can be lived in dignity and enrichment of the golden years, not to our sick, both mental and physical, and they will know we have not forsaken them. I want the farmer to know and to feel confident that in his state government he has a partner who will work toward helping him raise his income and increasing his markets. And I want the laboring man to know he has a friend who is sincerely striving to better his field of endeavor. I want to assure every child that this government is not afraid to invest in their future through education, so that they will not be handicapped on the very threshold of their lives. Today, I have stood where once Jefferson Davis stood and took an oath to my people. It is very appropriate that from this cradle of the Confederacy, this very heart of the great Anglo-Saxon Southland, that today we sound the drum for freedom, as have our generation of forebears before us done time and again down through history. Let us rise to the call of freedom-loving blood that is in us, and send our answer to the tyranny that clanks its chains upon the South, in the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth. I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. The Washington, D.C. school rout report is disgusting and revealing. We will not sacrifice our children to any such type school system, and you can write that down. The federal troops in Mississippi, Governor Barnett and Governor Johnson and distinguished visitors from that state could better be used in guarding the safety of the citizens of Washington, D.C., where it is even unsafe to walk or go to a ball game, and that in the nation's capital. I was safer in a B-29 bomber over Japan during the war in an air raid than the people of Washington are walking in the White House neighborhood. A closer example is Atlanta, Georgia. The city officials fought for political reasons over school integration and then build barricades to stop residential integration. What hypocrisy. Let us send this message back to Washington by our representatives who are here with us today, that from this day we are standing up, and the heel of tyranny does not fit the neck of an upright man. That we intend to take the offensive and carry our fight for freedom across this nation, wielding the balance of power we know we possess in the Southland. That we, not the insipid block voters of some section, will determine in the next election who shall sit in the White House of the United States. That from this day and from this hour and from this minute, we give the word of a race of honor that we will tolerate their boot in our face no longer, and let those certain federal judges put that in their opium pipes of power and smoke it for what it is worth. Hear me, Southerners, you sons and daughters who have moved north and west throughout this nation. We call on you from your native state, soil, to join with us in national support and vote. And we know wherever you are, away from the hearths of the Southland, that you will respond. For though you may live in the farthest reaches of this vast country, your heart has never left Dixieland. And you native sons and daughters of old New England's rock-rill patriotism, and you sturdy natives of the great Midwest, and you descendants of the far west flaming spirit of pioneer freedom, we invite you to come and be with us, for you are the Southern mind and the Southern spirit and the Southern philosophy. You are Southerners too, and brothers with us in our fight. What I have said about segregation in the race for governor goes double this day, and what I have said too, or about some federal judges, goes triple this day. Alabama has been blessed by God as few states in this nation have been blessed. Our state owns 10% of all the natural resources of all the states in the country. Our inland waterway system is second to none and has the potential of being the greatest waterway transport system in the entire world. We possess over 30 minerals in usable quantities, and our soil is rich and varied, suited to a wide variety of plants. Our native pine and forestry system produces timber faster than we can cut it, and yet we have only pricked the surface of the great lumber and pulp potential. With ample rainfall and rich grasslands for our livestock industry, is in the infancy of a giant future that can make us a center of the big and growing meat packing and prepared food industry and food marketing. We have the favorable climate, streams, woodlands, beaches, and natural beauty to make us a recreational mecca in the booming tourist and vacation industry. Nestled in the great Tennessee Valley, we possess the rocket center of the world and the keys to the space frontier. While the trade with the developing Europe built the great port cities of the East Coast, our own fast-developing Port of Mobile faces as a magnetic gateway to the great continent of South America, well over twice as large and hundreds of times richer in resources, even now awakening to the growing probes of enterprise and capital with a potential of growth and wealth beyond any present dream for our port development and corresponding results throughout the connecting waterways that spread our state. And while the manufacturing industries of free enterprise have been coming to our state in increasing numbers, attracted by our bountiful natural resources, our growing number of skilled workers and our favorable conditions, their present rate of settlement here can be increased from the trickle they now represent to a stream of enterprise and endeavor, capital and expansion that can join us in our work of development and enrichment of the educational future of our children, the opportunities of our citizens, and the fulfillment of our talents as God has given them to us. To realize our ambitions and to bring to fruition our dreams, we as Alabamians must take cognizance of the world about us. We must redefine our heritage, reschool our thoughts in the lessons our forefathers knew so well. In order to function and to grow and to prosper, we can no longer hide our head in the sand and tell ourselves that the ideology of our forefathers is not being attacked and is not being threatened by another idea, for it is. We are faced with an idea that if a centralized government assumes enough authority, enough power to dictate, to forbid, to require, to demand, to distribute, to edict, and to judge what is best, and enforce that judgment upon us, its citizens from unimpeachable authority, then it will produce only good, and it shall be our Father and our God. It is an idea, and it's a government that encourages our fears and destroys our faith. For where there is faith, there is no fear, and where there is fear, there is no faith. It encourages our fears of economic insecurity. It demands we place that economic management and control with government. In encouraging our fear of educational development, it demands we place that education and the minds of our children under management and control of government. And even in feeding our fears of physical infirmities in declining years, it offers and demands to follow us through it all, even unto the grave. It is a government that claims to us that it is bountiful as it buys its power from us with the fruits from its appropriation of the wealth that free men before it have produced, and builds on crumbling credit without responsibility to the debtors of our children. It is an ideology of government erected on the encouragement of fear and fails to recognize the basic law of our fathers, that governments do not produce wealth, people produce wealth, free people, and as those people become less free, as they learn there's little reward for ambition, that it requires faith to risk, and they have none, as the government must restrict and penalize and tax incentive and endeavor, and must increase its expenditure of bounties, then this government must assume more and more police powers. And we find we are becoming government-fearing people, not God-fearing people. We find we have replaced faith with fear. And though we may give lip service to the Almighty, in reality, government has become our God. It is therefore a basically ungodly government, and its appeal to the pseudo-intellectual and the politician is to change their status from servant of the people to master of the people, to play at being God without faith in God and without the wisdom of God. It is a system that is the very opposite of Christ, for it feeds and encourages everything degenerate and base in our people as it assumes the responsibilities that we ourselves should assume. Its pseudo-liberal spokesmen and some Harvard advocates have never examined the logic of its substitution of what it calls human rights for individual rights. For its propaganda play upon words has appeal for the unthinking. Its logic is totally material and irresponsible, as it runs the full gamut of human desires, including the theory that everyone has voting rights, without the spiritual responsibility of preserving freedom. Our founding fathers recognized those rights, but only within the framework of those spiritual responsibilities. But the strong, simple faith and sane reasoning of our founding fathers has long since been forgotten, as the so-called progressives and liberals tell us that our Constitution was written for horse and buggy days. So were the Ten Commandments. Not long ago, men stood in marvel and awe at the cities, the buildings, the schools, the autobahns that the government of Hitler's Germany had built. Just as centuries before, they stood in wonder at Rome's buildings, but they could not stand, for the system that built them had rotted the souls of the builders, and in turn rotted the foundation of what God meant that men should be. Today, that same system on an international scale is sweeping the world. It is the changing world of which we are told. It is called new and liberal. It is as old as the oldest dictator. It is degenerate and decadent. As the national racism of Hitler's Germany persecuted a national minority to the whim of a national majority, so the international racism of the liberals seek to persecute the international white minority to the whim of the international colored majority, so that we are footballed about according to the favor of the Afro-Asian bloc. But the Belgian survivors of the Congo cannot present their case to a war crimes commission, nor the Portuguese of Angola, nor the survivors of Castro, nor the citizens of Oxford, Mississippi. It is this theory of international power politics that led a group of men on the Supreme Court for the first time in American history to issue an edict based not on legal precedent, but upon a volume, the editor of which has said our Constitution is outdated and must be changed, and the writers of which some have admittedly belonged to as many as 500 communist organizations. It is this theory that led this same group of men to briefly bear the ungodly core of that philosophy in forbidding little school children to say a prayer. And we find the evidence of that ungodliness even in the removal of the words, "In God we trust," from some of our dollar bills, which was placed there as like evidence by our founding fathers as the faith upon which this system of government was built. It is a spirit of power thirst that caused a president in Washington to take up Caesar's pen and with one stroke of it make a law which the lawmaking body of Congress refused to pass, a law that tells us that we can or cannot buy or sell our very homes except by his condition and except at his discretion. It is the spirit of power thirst that led that same president to launch a full offensive of 25,000 troops against a university of all places in his own country and against his own people, when this nation maintains only 6,000 troops in the beleaguered city of Berlin. We have witnessed such acts of might makes right over the world as men yielded to the temptation to play God. But we have never before witnessed it in America. We reject such acts as free men. We do not defy, for there is nothing to defy. Since as free men, we do not recognize any government's right to give freedom or deny freedom. No government erected by man has that right. As Thomas Jefferson has said, quote, "The God who gave us life gave us liberty at the same time. No king holds the right of liberty in his hands," end of quote, nor does any ruler in the American government, whether he be in Montgomery or Washington, D.C.